Thanks for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Mozambique's ruling party candidate is declared the winner of the country's 10th presidential election as the opposition claims fraud, threatens a court challenge and protests erupt. Also, Congolese President Félix Tshisekedi says he's setting up a special commission to look at ways to change the constitution. He says he's trying to shift the rules of the game, and his oppositions that believe that he's trying to stay in power past his second term. Also, cash-strapped Senegalese football clubs are getting creative with ways to earn money, and that means getting local designers on board to come up with fancy kits. We take a closer look. But first, protests quickly erupted across Mozambique on Thursday as the ruling Frelimo party was announced to have held onto power in this month's disputed elections. It means that Daniel Chapo will succeed President Filipe Nyusi, following a poll that both the opposition and EU observers suspect was neither free nor fair. Clarice Fortuné with more.
Daniel Chapo.
2 weeks after the disputed October 9 polls, the National Election Commission finally announcing the results. The ruling party candidate, Daniel Chapo, has won the Mozambique presidential elections with nearly 71% of the votes. He's from the Frelimo party, which has been in power for half a century. But his main opponent, Venancio Mondlane, backed by the Podemos party, had already claimed he won the vote, alleging electoral fraud and manipulation. Since voting day, he has issued calls on social media for protests.
From a political point of view, not just from a technical point of view, we are in a situation that proves that we have a regime that is going to do everything it can not to lose the election.
Tensions were exacerbated by the double murder on Saturday of a lawyer and a political ally of Mondlane, who were preparing a legal case to contest the vote on behalf of the opposition leader. Thousands of people gathered outside Maputo on Wednesday to bury the lawyer Elvino Diaz, who was killed in an ambush alongside opposition activist Paolo Guambe. Mondlane has accused the security forces of the attack and claimed he could be next. Police said they have launched an investigation into the killings. After the election's results were announced, protesters gathered in the streets of Maputo.
Well, in DR Congo, a debate over revising the constitution is now in full swing. The government's pushing for reforms, but the opposition suspects President Félix Tshisekedi is angling to extend his stay in office. He's announced plans to set up a special commission to look at ways forward for potential revisions. Emmett Livingston in Kinshasa has more.
President Félix Tshisekedi of DR Congo has laid out plans for revising the constitution, sending a political shockwave through the country. On Thursday night, the Congolese leader told supporters in the northern city of Kisangani that next year he'll set up a committee to draft and propose a new constitution. The current constitution isn't fit for purpose because it causes delays in forming governments, Tshisekedi said, and contributes to paralysing local administrations. Tshisekedi added that Congo needs a constitution that's adapted to Congolese reality, since the current one was drafted by foreigners. But to the political opposition, his words are alarming in the extreme. There are deeply held fears that Tshisekedi will follow in the footsteps of some other African leaders who have stood for third terms after changing constitutions and then arguing that the revision resets term limits to 0. In DR Congo, the president is allowed to stay in office for 2 terms of 5 years each. Tshisekedi is 1 year into his second term. The country's main opposition leader, Moise Katumbi, said that no one is naive about the president's intentions and that he intends to try for a third term. The Congolese presidency has stated that the new constitution will not change the number of presidential terms, but it's not clear whether Tshisekedi would be barred from running again.
Emmett Livingston there for us in Kinshasa. Tunisian lawyer and critic of President Kais Saied, Sonia Damini, has been sentenced to 2 years in prison on charges of insulting her country. Now, Damini was originally charged for calling Tunisia a racist nation earlier this year, and she's been in prison, was put in prison in May and sentenced last month to 8 months behind bars on a separate conviction for saying that Tunisia is not a good place to live. And several African leaders will be amongst the Commonwealth summit when it kicks off on Friday in Samoa. 19 countries from the continent, including Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa and Rwanda, are part of the bloc, which is mainly made up of former territories of the British Empire. Now, that means UK President Keir Starmer is likely to be in for a tough showdown at the meeting. Several heads of state from the Caribbean are set on steering conversations towards calls for reparations for the transatlantic slave trade. And here in Paris, a court's begun tackling a request from survivors of the 1994 genocide in Rwanda to take a closer look at the role that the French state played in allowing the massacres of hundreds of thousands of Tutsis and those who tried to help them to happen. Clément Di Roma talks us through.
Three survivor associations are seeking reparations from France, aiming to prove the state's assistance to the government and militias responsible for the genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda between 1990 and 1994. Criminal proceedings have never succeeded, but this is the first time an administrative court has been involved, targeting the public institution rather than individuals. The request is based on a report detailing Paris' support through a defense agreement, extremist evacuations, illegal arms deliveries and the abandonment of civilians. The Ministry of Defense argues the court lacks jurisdiction and denies public responsibility. A historian's report commissioned by French President Emmanuel Macron concluded France bore heavy responsibilities in the genocide, though it has never been convicted of complicity. Last April, the French leader acknowledged that France could have stopped the genocide, but lacked the will.
Now, the Senegalese soccer championship kicked off this weekend. Cash-strapped clubs are looking at new ways to stay afloat, and the age-old staple of more merch hasn't gone unexplored. Our team in Dakar tells us more.
There's a jubilant atmosphere in Guédiawaye Stadium. The town's football club is entering the Senegalese First League, a moment celebrated with brand new kit. With shirts by local designers, fans are excited for this new chapter.
The shirts are really nice. What's more, they're high quality. When you wear it, you look really fashionable.
Amidst an ongoing economic crisis, clubs in the Senegalese League are relying more and more on the sale of jerseys to cover their costs.
It's going wonderfully well. Our fans are very attached to the club. In 1 week, we sold over 500 shirts at 10,000 francs each. You can see for yourself, that's something.
Photographer Sidi rarely misses a Senegal match. As the editor of a new football magazine, he helps promote the sport visually. Before the start of each season, he'll also suggest various kit designs to teams.
It is important and part of the branding of the local championship. There is a lot to showcase in Senegalese sports. We need to highlight this positive side. As a photographer and designer, my role is to show that positive side.
This year, on top of t-shirt sales, Senegalese clubs will benefit from TV rights revenues for the first time because of a pay-per-view system introduced by the country's professional football league. They're hoping to compete with European leagues, not just on the pitch, but also for fans' attention.
Caitlin Kelly there for us. And now, as Halloween approaches, for many of us who enjoy some safe thrills, zombies may make more of an appearance towards the end of the month, be it on TV or for trick-or-treating. But the African roots of the Haitian folklore that first birthed pop culture's fascination with the undead is at the heart of a new exhibition on show here in Paris. And our Aurélie Kouman went to unearth the story.
This is my favorite place of this exhibition. There's no sound, it's a little bit dramatic, it's mesmerizing. And this is just one out of the many works of a vast collection here at the Musée du Quai Branly in Paris called Zombies, Death is Not the End. Visitors are encouraged to consider a fresh take on their presumptions about the undead, a reliable staple for when pop culture needs to deliver some fantastical thrills. But this exhibition explores the links between heritage, identity, and culture.
Africa is very present in this exhibition. For instance, look at these costumes. We call them devotional costumes. It's really a representation of Africa with its spirits. Each garment represents a loas, which represents a spirit. And each spirit comes from Africa. Costumes for the lightning gods, for the Congo Queen. This costume, for example, symbolizes the Congo Queen. Africa is represented in Haitian voodoo.
Several guided tours, shows are organized around this exhibition, open to visitors until February 16th.
Thanks very much for that preview, Aurélie Couman. I'm hoping to catch that myself next week. That, though, is all the time that we have for Eye on Africa for now. But thanks for joining us, and do so again. Till then, take care.